Ah, vampire counts. They bring back so many memories from Patch 1 Warhammer, where you could pick them and feel like you were the king of multiplayer matches. No one could touch you with your Spirit Leech that deleted enemies and your never-ending heals on as many units as you wanted. Yes, vampire counts had their heyday. Well, there's still a good faction out there, folks, and they have a lot of options, but do you ever play vampire counts and see this type of thing? A geometry filled full of large creatures and elite infantry that just makes you want to pull out your zombie hair, if zombies do have hair? Well, yes, this kind of thing happens a lot to vampires, and I'll admit, I'm guilty. I do this type of thing to the vampires all the time, and it's because it's the bane of their existence, or what do you call it, non-existence, because they're not exactly alive. So here you're going to see a Norskin noob box. Or, sorry, defensive geometry. This is the New Age language for this. Yes, a Norskin defensive geometry. We're going to call it Noob Box because it goes better with Norskin. So we got Throg with 3 Marauder Champions, 2 Giants, a Premier Warrior with Great Weapon, and he had, note the past tense, a Marauder Horse with Throwing Axe. Well, I mean, it's still there, but it won't be there for long. Now, the Vampire player has some Vargeist, some Bats, Terrorgeist with Strigoi. There's a couple of Skeleton Spears, a couple of Graveguard, a bunch of Zombies, White King, Blood Knight, and Hex Wraiths. A nice, fairly balanced, little bit more anti-large capable army from the Vampires because of the threat of Mammoths potentially in this. 2 Giants will beat the ever-loving crap out of almost anything that doesn't have missiles. And that is the Vampire faction in a nutshell. No missiles, right? And so, basically, when you're the Vampires, your challenge here is, can you break the box? Can you get them to terror route? It's difficult whenever your forces are so tight together and you can't really get a great outflanked penalty. And then, whenever you blob up on the Norskins to try and take them out, you run the risk of Vortex spells, Breath spells, or just other devastating abilities that your opponent can unleash. The boxes may have the Lore of Life, if it's the appropriate faction. In this case, there's a Lore of Fire with the Bale Fiend, and Lore of Fire is pretty dang effective versus vampires. You bring the right spells, and you can cause a tremendous amount of damage. So you can see the Norskins here easily defending their circle. Throg heals, and he's got massive bonus versus large. It's going to make him really good against any vampire creatures coming after his army. And check this out. Here's that blobbing I told you about. You got to attack. You can't not attack. You're the vampires, and then this happens. A big burning skull goes ripping through your already somewhat limited capability infantry. Now, don't get me wrong, vampire infantry's not just gosh awful, but, well, it kind of is, actually, by the stats. It's just you can bring a lot of it, and it doesn't rout. So that's what makes it not as gosh awful. In any case, yeah, these Giants are doing exactly what I said. Now, if these had been the Mist Stalker Near Warriors, this build would be even more dangerous because these ethereal units, like Hex Wraiths, would get absolutely deleted. Hey, and speaking of, by the way, while you're watching this fight going on air, where's my Lizardman action? I didn't have a battle ready yet. I was working on a special project for MSI. I didn't have another Lizardman battle ready yet, but I didn't want you all going through any type of content drought, so, you know, here we are. Thanks to this being submitted, we can have some fun here and talk a little bit about the vampire count. So how do you come prepared for the large monster inside the defensive geometry if you're the vampires? Well, there is probably no perfect preparation, but you can see a breath attack coming out across here for the vampire counts. It's one way. You never overestimate the need for something like a vortex spell or a wind of death or something like that, because they can be extremely handy in a build like this. With the giant monsters, what they rely on is they have to have the infantry support. So you can see that's where the Marauder Champions are coming into play here. They're providing a well-armored, high hit point infantry support, and it's making it very difficult for the vampires to take out the key units in this build. Now, if you bring a Purple Son of Zerus or Wind of Death would actually be really good here. You could rip apart one of the flanks of this thing and tear the whole thing wide open and start to have a really good chance as a vampire count. Fate of Buna can be good. You know, on a unit like Norska, for instance, Norska can't heal, So Fata Buna becomes an exceptional tool at your disposal because of the ability to basically take away a ton of hit points off a particular unit prior to the battle starting. So things like that can be very useful. Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. So come prepared. One, you know, there's a risk-reward system with any faction when you pick your army. Look at this, a summoned Crypt Horror from Strigoi. So obviously the vampires have some tricks up their sleeves with this army, and they are going to make this as tough a fight as they can. In fact, a lot of the Marauder champions are starting to rout. This can happen eventually. You can see the patient play here, not overcommitting the cavalry, cycle charging, chasing away any units that routes and not letting them come back. The vampire is making the right choices here, but a balanced build here. A couple Graveguard, a couple Spear Infantry, zombies to absorb missile fire or charges, and just to be hit point chaff. The anti-large of the Strigoi, the ability to summon with the Strigoi. There's also a vampire hero here, I think. Yeah, here it is, a necromancer. So extra magic support with the necromancer, blood knights for anti-large, hex wraiths for terrifying and anti-armor duties, magical damage, you know, all those things you gotta throw in there. Vargeist and bats for disrupting things or getting behind lines. So this well-rounded army provides a lot of different capabilities. Wow, that Graveguard just got taste tested by the giant, and he apparently liked it. Yeah, you can see. I love that kick from Throg. That is one of the best animations in the game. Just like totally kicks that dude. In any case, yeah. I mean, the vampires are doing everything they can, but as you can see, these builds are tough for the vampires. They've lost almost all their chaff as a result of the Balefiend unleashing the Burning Head destruction. 183 kills on Balefiend, and then Throg is essentially untouched because the Terror guys just can't stay in combat with them, can't afford it. So it's making things very miserable for the vampires. And these builds are effective this way. If you want to try this in quick battle, you can. It probably won't make you a lot of friends if someone picks the vampires, and then you totally geometric defense, defense geometry, whatever we call it these days, noob box. You totally noob box them. They won't love you for it, but if you're going to play vampires, this is the reality of how you need to be prepared to play. These types of builds are simple, they're easy to control, and they make all kinds of problems for the vampires, all because of a lack of one thing. The vampires do not have heavy polearm infantry, so they do not have any infantry that provides them anti-large and armor piercing. And this is a key weakness for the vampires. And if you think about their heavy cavalry, blood knights are good against large. They're not great against armor. They can be healed. They have a massive charge bonus that can make up for a little of it, but there really is a big deficiency if you have to take out armor, and those Marauder champions were armored. And it makes it tougher for the vampires to cut through this kind of stuff. Typically also the vampires suffer from low armor with most units, making you particularly vulnerable to the splash attacks and stuff from big monsters, large units, and the armored infantry that you will sometimes see supporting these blobs. You could do something similar with the Lizardmen, with a few dinosaurs, and Temple Guard, and Lore of Life, or Fire, or Light. There's any number of things you can pull out against the vampires. Norska is one that a lot of people would think, well, they won't do that. Sure they can. They got mammoths. They got giants. They can absolutely do this. There's a lot of factions who can do this to you. The Beastmen can do this to you as against the vampire count. So there's a lot of people who can pull this off. So again, be aware of it. Be smart when you make your picks with the vampire counts. Realize that people know you don't have missiles, and they know you don't have anti-large infantry, really, and they're going to take advantage of that. They also know that your best infantry ain't that great, and they're going to try and make you pay for it. So, Vampire Count's still a competitive faction, especially in the right hands. They can disrupt the crap out of people who try and skirmish against them, though it is still possible if someone plays it smart. I think the vampires aren't nearly as strong as they used to be, which in a lot of ways is probably a good thing. They're definitely not the absolute beast of a faction they used to be, but they're certainly tough. And the fact that you won't rout their units is going to continue to make them tough. Look at this, a summon Crypt Ghoul late in the game. It's, again, just the flexibility the vampires can bring. I'll just give you a shot here. The giants are badly damaged. Throg is basically untouched. The vampires just don't have a prayer to put this down. It's just not going to happen. So even though they were methodical and tried to get rid of all the support, these builds can just be effective. Like I said, that's why people pick them. It's to make your life a bit miserable if you're a vampire, or you're unlife in this case. Oh, Throg laying down the smack. Giants just put out tremendous damage. They're a little bit weak in terms of armor and being able to get taken down to missiles, but that's one of the reasons why they're such a good pick against the vampires, is because they don't have any missiles. Yep. So the giants are a bit weaker to, say, Blood Knights, but 600 damage and it's armor piercing. Yeah, these guys are just a dang nightmare, and you can see that damage, yeah, just brutal. Just brutal. The leadership's up because all these things were triple chevroned before the fight in order to make sure that it would be really difficult to cause them to rout. So an interesting play. This actually came from Uncle Gant, who gave us a replay just the other day of Vampires versus Bretonnia, and I wanted to throw this one in because he had some fun replays, and I really appreciate Uncle Gant putting this up here, giving us a chance to have something to discuss. I would say that the vampires still have a lot of ways to be awesome. I love these guys in campaign still because of the Raise the Dead mechanic. They are super fun to play. Very, very aggressive faction, especially with some of the lords like the Vanguard Deploy and Poison Attacks and all the stuff you can get with the different legendary lords. They're fun to play in multiplayer. If you're looking for a faction where you want to try and like minimize some of your micromanagement, drown people in summons, and not have to worry about, you know, missile units, stuff like that, they're a fun faction to play, and I don't know that they're the best faction. I honestly would have suggested them, you know, a little while back as a good learner faction, though I think they do require a little more finesse these days. But like I said, they're still a great faction. So Throg and his goon squad of ice-vomiting giants, look at him, just hurling all over what's left of Strigoi, showing his disrespect, his utter disrespect for the undead. Gant, thanks for sending this one in. It's a lot of fun. Watch out for that defensive geometry, folks. It's real when you're playing as the vampires, but never fear. You can still play as the vampires. I don't have time to show it to you right now, but both my times taking some type of geometry as the lizardmen, again, and one of them may have been Uncle Gant, come to think of it, that beat me with this type of thing on stream. So it doesn't work every time, but it is fun to take, and something you just have to be prepared for. Gant, if you're watching, feel free to leave some comments. Tell us what you think about this build. Should you have picked something different? Would you normally have picked something different? Or do you still kind of like... I think your army is like a nice kind of all-rounder there, right? It's a pretty good all-rounder for the vampires. It's not too focused in any one given thing. But you all tell me what you think of his build. What do you think? Do you think that these Death Star type things against the vampires are too cheap? I mean, the vampires used to do it to everybody else. It kind of feels like a taste of their own medicine. What do you all think? I think it's totally legit. It's a viable tactic, something that you just have to keep on the table in order to help fight against the vampires. Anyway, HeirofCarthage signing out for now. Hope you all enjoyed it. I will see you soon with some more Total War Warhammer 2 action.